Hey guys, I wanted to start off by apologizing about the timing of this video. I know usually I've tried to make my videos be up around Friday evening, Saturday morning, afternoon, and this is a little bit later than I usually do them. The reason for this is life has been pretty hectic and I haven't really been able to sit down and do a ton of Maple like I would like to, or video editing. Now, this should all be sorted out within this coming week, and it's not looking as hectic as last week was, so things should be good. And I just appreciate your patience while I've worked through that stuff so that I can get this video out to you guys, albeit a little bit late. Now, going into what this video is going to have, not any insane gains this week, nothing crazy that's like, oh my gosh, but I did make some pretty good gains, and I do have some advice throughout the video for those of you who are following along. So for those of you that have been following along and are enjoying going alongside the series, I think you're going to like this episode a lot. The only other thing that I want to talk about before getting into my recap of the week is I just have to show this off because I am so excited about it. I did, in fact, get a 20-star Zerg! Woo! Now, this is on my main and has nothing to do with the series, but this was pretty cool, and this happened live. No, I will not tap it because it gives me like 1.2 mil range over my last item. So I'm not tapping it right now. It's staying at 20 stars, but this happened live, so don't forget to stop by the Twitch so you can see stuff like that that won't necessarily be included in every video. But with that being said, guys, let's look back on our gains for our dual blade this week. The first thing I did this week was to go back and complete the Lion King Castle questline. Now, a lot of you may be wondering why I would do this. I obviously have Hard Von Leon unlocked. I obviously have other characters. Why go through this trouble? The reason is I want to get up to the tower where the queen is, like I'm showing here, and I want to start doing her quest lines for the garden. Once you finish that quest line, you actually have the ability to talk to her, and you can trade in 9 pieces of gear that you've gotten for drops. Now, this can be her pendant, it can be her earrings, it can be her ring, it can be any combination that adds up to 9 total pieces. Once you have 9 of those, you can actually go back to her, and you get a nice little ring that can be potted. I do recommend this to get a pottable ring, but it takes about 50 minutes. Now it was time for me to tackle one of the big quests that most people put off for a very long time, and that would be the Afterlands quest. Now, Afterlands is an incredibly long quest line that you're going to be seeing here that is just fetch quest and talk to this person, talk to that person. It is very time consuming. I used a guide. Now, I wasn't paying attention 100% of the time completely, but I did use a guide, and I clocked in just over an hour to do this. The reward for doing this, though, is 3 totems that will fill up your totem slots and give you some stats, some attack, magic attack. There's even a set effect. So it is worth doing, especially early on if you can. Just know that it will be time consuming. I do heavily recommend a guide. That being said, if you are a player that enjoys the storylines or lore, this will be something that you will probably enjoy. The storyline for Afterlands is not horrendous. It just gets repetitive having to do it on multiple characters. Now, something to keep in mind if you are going to do it for multiple characters is you can stock up on the fetch quest items and transfer them in your storage, so that can make it easier. But yeah, you get 3 totems for this, and it is gains. With my gains, I decided to go and clean up some of the weekly quests that still hadn't been finished. First up was Magnus, Hard Magnus, and overall this wasn't that bad. It only took me about 4 minutes, I want to say, to finish, and I ended up getting a cape drop here, which was a pretty good gain over the pencilier that I was rocking. Hopefully it won't be too long before we replace that with Absolab. But after that, I ended up going to Lotus and heat checking myself. I went in solo, normal Lotus, just to see where my damage was. As you can see, 1 minute in, I have definitely not done enough for all 3 phases. But even if you can't solo it, it's good practice for the lasers. I was dreading doing this next part, but I knew that it was necessary. Threads of Fate. If you've done it before, then you know where this is going. If you haven't done it before, just know you do need to do it, whether you're in denial of that fact or not. Threads of Fate is a questline that unlocks the Threads of Fate relationship system that allows you to become friends with different characters, unlock their different buff abilities, have them run errands for you, all sorts of stuff. This questline, even with a guide, even with, for the most part, being on top of it, not having to stop or anything like that, took me 2 hours to do. 2 hours to do this questline to completion. It is insane, especially for this game, but it is necessary. Now, as I mentioned, by doing this, you're going to unlock a system that allows you to build up relationships with characters in its UI. Now, building these relationships is important because you can have them do things like run errands. Now, depending on the errand that they're running, there are tricks that go along with that I will make a video on once I am able to get to that point. But you can use those errands to get things like minerals or specifically herb pouches. Herb pouches are important because they can help you make wealth acquisition potions. Those are going to be very important for your grind sessions, but as I said, I'm not there yet. I will make a guide when this character gets there for those of you that are following along and don't know what those are. Additionally, you can get bonuses on the cape that you get from this quest line. Now, if you're doing dual blade like me and you want to have maximum cooldown reduction, that is very important. You can get -1 second on your cooldowns. That is awesome. And it's free. You just have to do the quest and just have to keep up with the characters. I used a text-based guide online that just said, do this, do this, do this. I definitely recommend that anyone that wants to do Threads of Fate do that. But again, for my lore enjoyers, the story is not that bad and you should enjoy it. Just be ready to sit down for a minimum of about 2 hours. The next day, I was starting my dailies with Arkarium, and I had this weird feeling, hey, don't forget to record, even though it was just Arkarium. So I started the recording 20% into the battle, and I could not believe what happened. My mic was muted. My mic was muted. What just happened? What just happened? I've been really making sure to stay on top of my arcane symbol dailies. Not only is this a good source of experience, but it gives you free stat. Here I finished some arcane symbol dailies, which got me to level 225, which is going to unlock our next area, Arcana, giving me that symbol and good gains. Now, this is where things can get tricky if you are following along and you're making about the same progress that I am. Now, when I got to Arcana and I started doing Save the Rock Spirits, you're going to notice in this footage, even though it's a little bit sped up, you're probably going to see the fact that I am not necessarily one-shotting the vines that are holding the rock spirits in place, and this makes this way more difficult. Now, depending on your class, you may have an easier time with movement or with damage, but what I ended up ultimately doing was just sucking it up and capturing 1 to 2 at a time. Yes, this will be longer than if you were to capture 4 or 5 every time, but if you're not being consistent with that, it'll end up being about the same amount of time, or in some cases faster. All in all, doing all 3 runs took me about 10 minutes, so it was a little bit of a slog, but I do stand by the advice, just do 1 to 2 captures if you're struggling like I was, and it will be way more consistent and it'll save you some headache. I wanted to include this little section to talk about hyperstat. Again, with this episode, I'm kind of addressing the people that might be following along themselves or doing their own struggles. So what I originally did was I had my hyperstats set so that I would get bonus experience because I was doing a lot of farming. But now that I'm going to start trying to solo some of these weekly bosses like Chaos Vellum, I need to fix my hyperstats. So I did that using an actual hyperstat calculator. The hyperstat calculator will be in the description of the video. If for whatever reason you still can't find it or can't figure out how it works, please let me know in the comments. I'm happy to help. If you guys want me to make a quick guide on how to use that hyperstat calculator, please let me know in the comments. I will make a YouTube short or a small 2-minute tutorial on it. This week I was able to successfully solo Chaos Vellum. It did take me 2 tries. The first try I died after about 4 minutes due to me not respecting his mechanics. Now my character is 10k stat, not 30k stat, so I still have to do the mechanics. I wasn't thinking that way, and I was like, oh yeah, I got some gains, I got a Dominator pendant drop. Nope, still have to do the mechanics, still have to respect the tails and play safe. Like I said before, take a look at the damage you do on your burst versus how much time is left, and if you can do it with just burst, then play safe. I didn't do that the first time, so I had to go in a second time. The second time I went in, the run took me about 8 minutes, and I was able to get my weapon from this run. Now, Pierre this week did in fact play nice, and I was able to solo him. The general strategy that you're going to see me implement here is getting him down to about 40%, maybe even 50% if you do a little bit more damage. And then when he splits into a hat that's a different color than yours, you will be able to do 1.5 times damage to him. So the general idea is get him to where he splits to a different hat around 50, 40%, maybe even like 35 if you're, really feeling risky. And then bind him, as you're going to see here, and burst him. He ends up living in purple hat with about 0.4%, but I'm able to do 0.4% damage fast enough that he doesn't split again. Easy win. I continued through my other weeklies. I cleared Chaos Von Bon in about 2 minutes. Chaos Queen is now down to about 3 minutes. CZOC, HMAG, HILA, CPB, Normal Cygnus, all of those are pretty quick for me now. The only one that was left for me was Princess No. This one still takes forever just because of the whale at the beginning, but I was able to clear it, and it actually leveled me up to level 226, so that's an interesting way to level. And I was lucky enough to get a Arcana ring, so no complaints towards Princess No this week. Now, the last major thing that I did for this week was recruiting a party for Normal Lotus and Normal Damien. This party was formed in, I'm not kidding you, maybe 5 minutes since me starting party recruitment. The total times for the fights were Lotus took us 5 minutes and Damien took us 6.5 minutes. So it was definitely a struggle, but we did it. Everyone got green, or I think one guy ended up with blue, but it was very clearly like an evenly matched like struggle party. Everyone did their part, and I felt really good about this. This is definitely what I'm going to be doing next week as well, because I'm not quite solo ready. But what I do plan to do is use the reset tickets from the event so that I can run Normal Lotus and Normal Damien one more time. That should give me 2 coins in each, and that will get me closer to having my Absolab set. So, where does that put our gains for the week? Well, the main things that I got this week were my weapon and my pants. I still do not have potential on my pants because I am out of Legion coins. I haven't dumped all of my Legion coins into this character. I have been using them on my other character as well. The emblem is probably just going to stay right here because I'll get a legendary emblem from the event. And I'm like, why not? I'll just use it on here. I haven't bothered using the Arcana ring yet because I don't have the Meso to upgrade it right now or to focus on its potential. I got this to item drop rate, and this is going to be the next one I want to get to item drop rate. It just keeps hitting 21% luck. I really need the item drop rate. As I mentioned, I did get this cape, which is pretty nice. It's got all stat. It's got luck, strength, which is one of the secondary stats. So yeah, pretty nice, pretty good gain. My focus for this coming week is going to be using one of the reset coupons on Normal Lotus and Normal Damien so that I can get some Absolab pieces. I've been doing my weeklies for Scrapyard and Dark World Tree, so I'm going to be staying on top of that. But really just focusing on Ursus, doing my arcane dailies as I've been. There's not a ton of drops that I can get from weeklies now. It's mainly Star Force and potentials that I need to improve. My next big upgrade will be getting this transferred to Fafnir and then transposed to Sweetwater, which I should be able to do this week at reset. Other than that, I'm focusing on drop rate. And this is where I want to talk about something. If you're following along with me, or you're making progress around the same rate as me, this is the point in which you should be making your drop and Meso gear. The reason I say that is once you reach Arcana, that is where your grind is kind of going to slow down in my experience. You're going to be grinding for more hours towards each level. And if you don't have meso and drop gear, you're setting yourself up for failure. So this is kind of like the critical time for me and you, if you're following along, for getting the most out of your time that you're putting into this game. Now, what I'm going to recommend is if you're at this point and you're doing your dailies and weeklies and you don't have a boss mule, create a boss mule and start investing some of your time into that boss mule. Right now, this character on weeklies is getting about 1 billion mesos. If you can get another character just up to this point, this character doesn't even solo normal Lomian. If you can just get up to this point on another character, that's another billion mesos every week that you can funnel into your main. So that's just my piece of advice to the players who are in similar situations to this character or have been following along. With that being said, that's going to be it for today's episode, guys. I really appreciate you guys following along on this journey. As always, drop by my Twitch channel if you want to see 99% of this stuff be done live. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts, please put them in the comment section below. If you like the video, please drop a like. If you're enjoying the series, subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Share this video with someone who you think would find it funny, or just show love however you do. I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you guys next week.